Chapter 4. Foundation Building Pill. Wow, in the midst of the messy rocks, the golden monkey rushed out. But this time, it did not charge at the old man again. But instead, it became smaller and hid behind Kangchon, letting out a whimpering sound. Obviously, the golden monkey had already been subdued by the old man and hoped that Kangchon would take the heat for him. Kangchon was instantly amused. Although this monkey was powerful, his heart was like a child's. He looked amused and couldn't help but laugh. The old man was also amused by the golden monkey. "Elder, you'd better be merciful. Don't be so familiar with it." After laughing, Kangchon cupped his fists at the old man. He could see that the old man did not have any hostility towards them, so he was not worried. At this moment, Kangchon had already concluded that the old man was some kind of cultivation expert. I'm afraid that he had previously been sealed in the small tripod and was unintentionally released by himself. "Kid, don't worry. The old man is guilty of not bothering with a small hairy monkey. Rather, the old man also wants to thank you for unsealing the reverse heavenly cauldron and releasing the old man." The old man smiled and waved his hand. "Reverse heavenly cauldron. Is this it?" Kangchon sniffed with some curiosity and pointed at the large green-colored cauldron at the old man's feet. "Right, this is its original face," the old man said, and jumped down from the green cauldron. And with a wave of his hand, the green-colored cauldron began to shrink, eventually turning into the small palm-sized cauldron that Kangchon had originally seen. "Kid, I still don't know your name, but you're the one who released me, so I have to thank you for everything. By the way, you can call Old Man Danhuang." The old man put down the small tripod and sat down. The golden monkey saw that the old man wasn't hitting it anymore, so it emerged from behind Kangchon and sat aside to play with the small tripod. It couldn't figure out why the big tripod from earlier had become so small all of a sudden. Senior Kangchon meets Senior Dan Emperor. Senior Kangchon is a son of the Wong family of the Great Tang Kingdom's Heavy Iron City. Kangchon respectfully said, but he was holding back a smile in his eyes. "Egg yolk. This name is really strong." Emperor Dan didn't know Kangchon's mind. Otherwise he would have destroyed Kangchon, even if Kangchon was his savior. "Right, Kangchon, who helped you pick this name? How dare a cultivator pick such a heaven-defying name?" Emperor Dan was surprised at his words. As everyone knows, cultivators walk against the heavens and often suffer from a heavenly tribulation, the most afraid of God. And even the cultivator's vows will be verified by God once the reversal of the heavenly tribulation will be added to the body. So the cultivator for the heaven is very reverent. Kangchon's family is a cultivation family. Danhuang was surprised who dared to give Kangchon such a heavenly name. "Senior Dan Emperor, don't be senior long and short. Old man is not good at this." Kangchon was interrupted by Emperor Dan before he could finish. "Then let the late generation address you as Elder Dan," Kangchon said. He also felt that it was inappropriate to call him egg yolk. "Egg yolk." Emperor Dan nodded at his words, satisfied with this title. "Elder Dan, my late grandfather said that my name was given to me by my father. As for why I was given this name, my late grandfather is not sure. It is said that my grandfather was all against it in the beginning," Kangchon said. Shortly after he was born, his parents left, and so far he had never seen one side. For his parents, he only had a vague concept in his mind. "It seems that your father wasn't a madman. That would be extraordinary." Emperor Dan nodded his head and said, "Although cultivators fear heaven and earth, but it's not without some maniacs. They just like to take some names that are against the sky, what defeat the sky or battle the sky are. As a result, the sky has not been defeated by them, but they themselves have been destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. Speaking of which, Kangchon, this is considered good. After all, he did not battle the sky to defeat the sky. Just the same name as the sky. Ancient legends, there is the green sky, yellow sky, Kangchon, and so on the name of heaven. Therefore, one could imagine how surprised others were to hear Kangchon's name. However, after all, Emperor Dan had come from an extraordinary background and did not overcalculate it. The most surprised in his heart was still how Kangchon uncovered the seal and released him. After all, Kangchon's cultivation was there, and Emperor Dan couldn't figure out how Kangchon would have the ability to uncover the seal that he himself had laid down. Kangchon didn't know about the seal. He saw Emperor Dan asking about it, so he honestly said, "Elder Dan, I heard my grandpa say that there are magical treasures that can recognize their owners with a drop of blood. So I dropped a drop of blood. As for how to release you, the latecomer doesn't know. A drop of blood to recognize the owner." Emperor Dan's eyes widened at the words. He really didn't think that Kangchon had used such a thunderous method to release him. He also knew about the means of recognizing one's master with a drop of blood, but there were special circumstances for that. In the cultivation world, some cultivators would leave their magic treasures to their descendants, because the bloodline was connected, so their descendants could manipulate the magic treasures by recognizing the owner through blood dripping. That meant that it and the owner of the magic treasure were from the same bloodline, that's all. It also depended on the purity of the bloodline or not. Emperor Dan does not think that the first generation of this reverse heavenly cauldron's owner is Kangchon's old ancestor. After all, with his vision, he can see that the reverse heavenly cauldron's age can definitely be pushed back to 100,000 years ago, maybe more than that. And Kangchon would have that kind of old ancestor, even if there is such an old ancestor, so many generations down. Bloodline has long been impure. The method of recognizing the owner of the drop of blood still have a shit R. However, there was obviously no need for Kangchon to deceive him regarding this point. So Emperor Dan could only eventually reveal himself from this topic, since he really couldn't think of a reason. Alright, let's leave this matter aside for now. Since you kid let me out, then naturally the old man won't treat you poorly. Say it. What kind of benefits do you kid want? Whether it's a cultivation technique or a divine secret, the old man can give it to you. And it's definitely better than your family's raggedy techniques. Emperor Dan said with incomparable bravado, but he was indeed qualified to say so. Kangchon heard the words, but he was stunned. He did not think of this level. He was just now worried that his small tripod was gone, after all. There was no way for him to snatch the small tripod from the Dan Emperor's hands. It was estimated that people could destroy him with a wave of their hands, so he could only die. At this moment, when he heard that the Dan Emperor had compensation, his heart was immediately happy. Only that he didn't know what to ask for a moment. Kangchon thought carefully for a moment. Suddenly his eyes lit up. His heart immediately had an idea. He said excitedly, "Dan Lao, I don't need the merit method or divine ability, as long as you can help me build my foundation." Divine power techniques were certainly appealing, but for Kangchon, not being able to build his foundation had always been a pain in his heart. And as long as he couldn't build his foundation, any divine power or technique would be useless. According to the means displayed by Emperor Dan previously, if there was still hope for him to build his foundation, then that hope must be Emperor Dan. Kangchon's heart was suddenly filled with anticipation. Foundation establishment. Emperor Dan's eyes widened. It wasn't that Kangchon had made a difficult request, but it was too easy, especially for him as an alchemist. It couldn't be easier to just refine a foundation establishment pill. Foundation building Dan was an extremely high-quality elixir that could make people ascend to the heavens in one step. In the cultivation world, only a small number of alchemists could refine it, and the general cultivation families, or the sect's direct descendants, would take foundation building Dan to build up their foundations, which would allow them to narrow down the time they had to cultivate, making them have a strength that surpassed that of their peers. How could Emperor Dan not expect Kangchon's request to be so simple? It was simply not a request. After all, according to his character. If he was in a good mood, throwing a few foundation establishment pills to Kang Chon was not a problem at all. However, Kang Chon's answer was very dry. What he wanted was to build his foundation. This problem had plagued him for 9 years now. As long as they could solve this problem, they didn't care about anything. Kid, you have to know that the cultivation techniques and divine secrets that the old man offers are very much in demand in the entire cultivation world. Are you sure you don't want them? As for foundation building, your kid's qualifications look good. Are you not even willing to wait a few years? You have to know that building a foundation with your own strength can be much stronger than taking pills. Emperor Dan persuaded. He was not reluctant to part with the foundation establishment pill, but was genuinely thinking about Kang Chon. However, even if Emperor Dan's strength was heavenly, he still did not know what Kang Chon had in mind. Kang Chon smiled bitterly at his words and said, "Elder Dan, you don't know. The late generation was 8 years old when he was cultivating. And so far, he has impacted the foundation establishment stage 9 times. But every time he came to the critical moment, his whole body lost all its spiritual energy, and finally fell from the 9th level of Qi practicing stage to the 1st level of Qi practicing stage. And so on and so forth has been 9 times already. And the late generation really has no way out." Although failing to build the foundation 9 times did not make Kang Chon despair, it did let him know that there was definitely something wrong with his body. Otherwise, how could he not be able to build the foundation? And as for the matter of being cursed by the heavens, that was completely nonsense. There is actually this matter. Emperor Dan was instantly surprised upon hearing this. Two rays of light shot out from his eyes. Sizing Kang Chon up carefully, shaking his head somewhat doubtfully. "It doesn't make sense. Your body is very good. Your Qi and blood are vigorous. You are exceeding normal people. According to you, you were able to impact the foundation establishment stage 9 times. Your qualifications are definitely at the genius level. How could you not be able to establish the foundation? Late generation also doesn't understand." Kang Chon said helplessly. He had been thinking about this question for 9 years. "Good, since that's the case, I'll give you a foundation establishment, Dan. You'll build your foundation for me now. I'd like to see what's so strange about your body." Emperor Dan did not know where to take out a red pill from and threw it to Kang Chon. This foundation building pill was still refined by old me in the past out of boredom. "I didn't expect it to be useful now. You quickly take it to build your foundation." Emperor Dan laughed. "Surprisingly, it's the legendary foundation building pill." Kang Chon received the red elixir. His heart was shocked beyond measure. In fact, when he saw the Dan Emperor appearing from the cauldron, he knew that the other party must be an alchemist. But he just didn't think that the other party's rank was so high that he was able to refine such an extremely high-quality elixir as the foundation establishment elixir. Although the foundation establishment Dan was only useful for mortals at the foundation establishment stage and below, it was very difficult to refine, and only a small number of people in the entire cultivation world were able to refine it. Like Kang Chon had only heard the legend of the foundation establishment pill before, but had never seen it. After all, the entire Heavy Iron City could not find a foundation establishment pill. Kang Chon did not think that now he would have the opportunity to see the foundation building Dan, and also be able to take it. His heart could not help but feel confident about the upcoming foundation building. After thinking that, with an excited mood, Kang Chon sat down on his knees and swallowed the foundation establishment Dan.